Hi there, welcome to the Accidental Pop Star here on YouTube. If you're watching for the very first time, you are more than welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you are not aware of this channel and the concepts, just let me give you a little refresher. So my name is Ali Beg. I was once a member of 90s boy band Bad Boys Inc. We had 6 top 30 UK hits and a top 10 selling album, and we were also quite fortunate to win numerous awards in the UK and abroad before we actually went our separate ways in the spring of 1995. So I had what you could call a fleeting brush with fame. I had my 15 minutes. Now the experience was fantastic, it was amazing, but it did leave many unanswered questions, and it always left me with that sense of what if. So the idea is to talk to those who have had similar experiences. So they're not the accidental pop star, I am. Now their success may completely differ to Bad Boys Inc., but the DNA of our own experiences actually remains the same. For this episode, I was absolutely honoured to catch up with a fellow Scot, Stuart Woody Wood from the Bay City Rollers. If you're unaware of the group, what I suggest you do is quickly YouTube them and Google them and just take a look, because their popularity in the mid to the late 70s was on par with the Beatles. They were quite simply enormous. The hysteria on a daily basis had not been seen since the days of the Beatles. What I wanted to do with Woody was try something completely different, because the story of the Bay City Rollers has been told numerous times. So what I want to do with him is talk to him about the topic of fame, what it meant to him, how he dealt with it, and how it impacted the band. Please welcome to the accidental pop star, Woody from the Bay City Rollers. Hi Woody, it's lovely to see you. Thank you so much for jumping on. It's an absolute pleasure to meet you. I would like to go right back to the beginning to start our chat. You were only 16 years old when you joined the Bay City Rollers. Do you think at that age you were prepared for what was about to come?
Of course I was. I knew everything, as we all do when we're 16. What don't we know? Hi, Alan. How are you?
I'm brilliant.
I didn't have a clue. Absolutely clueless. All I knew is I loved the idea of playing in a band. Now, we used to, at school, we used to have our jotters, little books and pens, and being a Wood, the surname, I was always at the back of the class, so you couldn't really hear what was going on half the time anyway, so I'd just sit and doodle, and 9 times out of 10 it'd be a drum kit or a guitar, and just just drift away into God knows where. So yeah, who knows.
Was it a case that one day you're just lying in bed, chilling out, dreaming of being a pop star, and then the very next day you literally are a pop star?
It was pretty quick the way the whole thing kicked off. The band had already been playing. They started in 1967, and I joined them. I was asked in 1973, and probably had my first gig in 1974. So I don't know if you can hear that. That was our bell just went. There's somebody at the door and the dog's barking like mad. That's Elvis, the dog. He has to get his voice heard. He's still in the building. So yeah, the band had been going quite a few years. And for me, I'd been in bands, but 15-year-old playing the local band and playing the local school. Things like that. Our very first gig was an old folks home. There was 15, a couple of acoustic guitars. So any opportunity to get playing in front of people and just playing music. So it wasn't really wanting to be a pop star. That was the last thing I'd be thinking of. It was the excitement of being in a band and playing music and having fun with kind of guitars and stuff.
Did you sort of have heroes at that age? Did you sort of look up to anybody? Did you want to emulate anybody?
Musically, 15, it would have been Slade. I was a big Slade fan. That was the first sort of pop music. Prior to that, I was more into the Louis Armstrong, the old black and white musicals, Glenn Miller, one of my favourite songs still today, the Moonlight Serenade. Just things like that. That was more kind of my musical taste. And then pop music, Slade came along, and other bands that kind of that, the 70s music, basically. That was me. Everything, anything that you could kind of get a listen to.
When you first joined the band, did you click with the lads immediately?
Yeah, two of the guys, the Longmuir brothers, were probably the most easy to get on with. They were just the guys next door. Les, Eric, also really easy to get on with. We all sort of got on generally, but after a couple of years together, you kind of get to know people's personalities, and there was fallouts. Alan and myself, we never fell out. We always, or Derek, we never really had fallouts. None I can remember. Eric, occasionally. Les, more often. But that was always going to happen. I think you get a bunch of guys together, years on the road, constantly together. You're going to have fallouts. I think it's quite natural. It would have been weird if we hadn't fallen out.
Sure. We can touch on that a little bit later as well. But I'm also quite intrigued to know, if when you first joined the lads, did you try and have your own identity in the band, or did you just want to see it as a group?
Yeah, I'm kind of like the team player. This is what everybody wanted to do. The general, we had our manager, Tam. He was driving the bus literally, or the car as it happens. And he would kind of, this is what you've got to do, and you've got to wave more, and smile when you get up on stage, move about. It was kind of an education from this. So these guys were the band. They'd already had a hit in 1971, so I was kind of looking up to them. I was the youngest in the band at the time. Alan would have been 9 years older. He was ancient, at 22 or whatever it was. And the Eric were the kind of closer to my age. They were a couple of years older. So these guys, I'd just be taking their lead. What do we do? Okay, shall I wear this? Does that look okay? And am I playing the right chords here? And is that working? And you were kind of just getting, they were great sort of teachers, if you like.
You see, that I find that whole dynamic quite interesting, because by this point, as you mentioned, the lads had already had hit records. So by this point, they've already got a degree of fame. So when you come in, did you sort of ask them for any sort of advice about how to deal with fame, and what would inevitably be your changing profile?
Not really. It was pretty, the guys already had the screaming fans. That had already started. It was actually Nobby Clark and John Devine who were in the band at the time. Nobby was the original singer, and John was the guy I replaced on guitar. And those five guys were getting a reaction. There was already people screaming at the front of the stage, and the guys used to stand at the back. And I actually roadied for them a couple of times, the Rollers, before I joined. I think that was probably the manager, Tam, at the time, knowing that he was going to ask me if I wanted to join, and seeing that I was obviously keen, bands and the whole thing. So he probably knew my answer was going to be yeah, before he posed the question. But with roading with the guys, I got to know them anyway, and I start to learn their set, the songs they were doing. That they would do like a Bob Dylan song, but it wasn't done the way Bob Dylan would do it. They would do the film Clockwork Orange. They did an instrumental version of Beethoven's Ninth. It was just very interesting the way that they approached everything, and they were a good sort of rock and roll band. They really kind of laid into it. It was real pop and fresh and kind of dynamic. It was a great band, great live band.
See your level of fame, Woody. It must have literally felt like it changed and happened overnight. When you grew up, did you have any sort of idea what fame was about? Did you have a concept of what fame was, what it would be like to be famous? And when you became famous, was it everything that you expected it to be?
I mean, it's the reality. Oh, sorry, what's the noises? The reality is always different. It's that kind of thing. If you're going away on holiday and it's someplace really hot with palm trees, and it's completely different to where you're brought up, you visualize what you think something's going to be until you get there, and it's not what you think it's going to be. It's a kind of different thing. It's kind of another way of putting it. as having a glass of water, putting your finger in it and running hot water into it and keep adding hot water. And it gets to the point where you've got to take it out. But just before that, if you were to put your other finger in to that hot water, you'd probably burn yourself.
Yeah.
So the point of that is it was sort of gradual. It was very quick. But within 6 months from nobody knowing who I was and me not knowing much about much, to be sitting, number one in the chart, it was quite a kind of like falling at a whirlpool and spun around. But it was manageable. It didn't freak me out. I didn't feel it became the normal. It happened very quick, but it became the normal. It's stable. It was that kind of stable situation for a couple of years. We got used to people shouting, screaming at us, and no time to yourself, and locked in hotel rooms, and it was terrible.
You mentioned Tam Cowan, who was your manager.
Campaign.
Yeah, he did have a very tight reign over you. Did you feel slightly out of control though of your own destiny because of the way he was managing you?
Oh, totally. I mean, Tam was very dominating. He had an idea, this is what you guys are going to do. He was very much in charge of the band. He was in a band himself. He was managing that band. He had kind of most of the say in what was going to happen up to a point. Musically, he didn't get overly involved in that side. He just knew if it was that's a good song or that's not a good song.
Mm.
So, but as far as when we're leaving and what time we're going to leave at and where we're going and gigs and where you're going to play and who's in the band, all that kind of thing, Tam was very much in charge. But I think in a way, when you're 16, coming up 17, or all teenagers, you needed somebody that was in charge. We would have been basically babies all over the place had there not been. So it's kind of make sure those guys are in their rooms.
So was he fatherly or was he more of a sergeant major?
Probably the latter. It
Okay.
was more, you had a bit of a fear of Tam. You had to be kind of careful how you were doing things, and if he tells you to do something, you better sort of do it. I'm probably over dramatising it a bit. It wasn't quite, you'd get thumped. He was just quite a big guy. He was quite powerful, Tam, and he would get you get up there and wave. But Tam, I've got to play the guitar. Never mind the guitar, just you wave and smile. Yeah, right, I'll try. But you'd also get a laugh.
Yeah.
It wasn't all.
Was he
Like
the
that.
one that encouraged you guys, particularly your writers and your producers, to sort of be shunted into what was a teeny bop market?
I think it became more of that and more of that. I mean, I remember one time we were in Australia and I'd collapsed on stage. And they wanted me to, well, we're in the middle of a tour, so we had to the show goes on. So I remember going back to my hotel room, but just feeling pretty crap. And Tam was already on to the press, one of the basic laws, not very well. A photographer had come into the room and taken a photograph of me in my bed. I'm oblivious to this. I was just feeling quite ill at the time. And they'd stuck a wee teddy bear. Here's me and my pillow feeling ill, and there's a teddy bear there. And they've got the photograph, and that made all the papers. Basically. So why put a teddy bear there? It's bizarre, but that was a teeny market. That was the whole kind of like horses, girls and horses, get us on horses. So there was a lot of kind of play to the teeny girls. That's this, the magazines, Diana and Jackie,
Yeah.
16 in the States, very teeny bop. And we were just one of many bands that were put into that market. We got labelled basically.
You see, when I was in the band and that was the market that we were obviously targeting, I almost felt that we had to behave in a certain manner. And even though the name of our band was very much tongue in cheek, I never felt that we could live up to that name because of the market that we were trying to attract. Did you feel that you had to behave in a certain manner to make sure that you kept your fan base and you kept selling records?
I mean, you became part of what you were. You became that very thing. The people that don't drink, the people that don't go out clubbing, go out fighting, because
Yeah,
we never did that. I used to literally drink milk by the gallon. I did
yeah,
like it.
yeah.
I only started drinking alcohol when I was 20.
So
And
why?
that,
What was the milk all about?
It was kind of, good for you. It was
Okay.
vitamin D. It was white. It was cold. It was nice. It was just nothing. But I think what happened, because we maybe said in one interview, "What's your favourite drink?"
Yeah.
I would probably have said milk, because it kind of was. I used to do the milk round and stuff, and have a pint of milk on my job in the morning at 6:30. And gulp that down. So milk was great when you're sort of 13, 14. That just carried on into my teenage years. But I think that, well, I don't think the press, obviously, oh, milk, let's make that a thing. Anytime we did any press conferences, we'd have the big table, 5 chairs, and 5 bottles of milk and a glass. We probably had bottles of whiskey underneath the table. Well, we didn't. But, that's the kind of thing that used to happen. So that just became added to the whole teeny bop sort of thing. Milk.
See, when you guys, obviously you've cracked the UK market, and then you go to America. And I was watching a documentary about you guys the other night, and it just brought back so many of my own memories of the craziness and the mayhem. Were you comfortable with that level of mayhem, first of all, Woody?
Yeah, it was absolutely fine. It became, I think I mentioned earlier, that became the norm. You'd I remember one time driving through Manchester, the 5 of us were in the car, going to Piccadilly Radio to do an interview. And one were stuck at the traffic lights, and one female recognised the guys in the car, recognised us. And she just dropped her bags that she had and started screaming by herself in the middle of Manchester. Because she was doing that and looking at the car, other people were
Yeah,
looking at her,
yeah.
then looking at the car, and they start to see who was in the car. They joined in. So now there's about 20, 30 females all standing there screaming their heads off and starting to get close at the car. And we're saying to the driver, Tam, who was driving, Tam, get the foot down. Let's go. So eventually we got away from that. But that thing happened often. That's why they always kind of had us in, back vans, or in, we used to travel in the trunks of car boots,
Yeah, yeah.
curtained off. You probably had that similar kind of thing. You
Oh,
just had,
yes.
but it became the norm. It wasn't odd. It would have been odd if it got on a bus or got on a train or.
You see, I remember we did a gig once in Newcastle in the city centre, and the stage was a very small stage, and we were literally enclosed by thousands of fans, and there was basically no way out. And to get back to what was in effect a small saloon car, there was a group of security guys, and what they had to do was they had to line up in a row, and they basically had to spread their legs, and we had to crawl between their legs to get into the car one by one. And I remember we all sort of fell on top of each other, and we were all delirious. It just felt so surreal. But very quickly, Woody, I've got to be honest, I started not long after to get really concerned about the safety and the well-being of the fans, because I could see people getting crushed and I could see people getting hurt, particularly at concerts, and it used to really trouble me. Were you ever in a position where it was starting to trouble you and your bandmates as well? Or are you just so concentrated on your performances, that that almost sort of took a second beat to you guys?
Yeah, I mean, the way it ended up, we used to have security guys traveling with us, and they weren't watching us, they were watching what was happening
Yeah,
around us.
yeah,
And all that because there used to be some like horrible things happen with uh, balconies collapsing, the orchestra pit collapsing, St. John's ambulance men
yeah.
there. We had to, the amount of times I don't think we ever played a concert beginning to end without stopping 2 or 3 times. We always had to stop the show. There was always something that was going on. Tam, he had an eye. He was watching the audience. Anytime he saw anything that was looking a bit dodgy, right, guys, off, off, off. He'd come running on stage, and we'd be off until that got sorted. So yeah, there was a lot of focus on safety, but we were not oblivious to it. We were doing our thing because you're focused on doing a show. You're not looking to see, is she okay? Is that person okay? You're not doing that. You're just doing a show. But you were aware also, it became obvious that we had people there that were going to stop anything happening. But things did happen. People used to pass out. I remember we come off stage sometimes, there'd be like 50 people all laid out in stretchers and all the St. John's ambulance men. There was one time a female, she just sat up and she saw us walking past her and she went all frantic again. So, wah! And she just freaked out again. Oh, it was kind of mad, but as I say, it became normal. Thankfully, nobody got seriously hurt.
Yeah, we were fortunate like that. And thankfully, nobody got seriously hurt. But I do remember once the Daily we made the front page of the Daily Star newspaper because there was a number of girls got quite badly injured in a crush at a gig that we did in Birmingham, and it used to really trouble me. Um, but see, at that time, Woody, when people were getting hurt, this is when the whole experience started to become very real for me because up until a certain point, the whole thing felt very surreal because we were very much a manufactured band thrown in at the deep end. At any point during what was your pomp, did you think this is actually real? There's nothing manufactured about this. There's nothing surreal about it. This is 100% genuinely real. Did you have that sense in your head?
For me, it was just my life. That I feel exactly the same way now as I did back then.
Oh, really?
Just older, yet nothing's really changed. The focus has always been, getting music together. Where we go next, is that organised? It never really, because it was quite a quick rise to that fame.
Yeah.
And the come down from it was a bit less. It was a bit slower. It didn't kind of suddenly fall away. It just sort of dropped down again. But the one constant was always the music side of it. That's, I've always played music. I've always been in a band. I've always had something kind of musically going on. And that's the one thing I think's kept, for my head, it's kept me focused on getting through life.
Did you meet any of your heroes?
A couple. Oh God, who did we meet? Elton John, him and John Lennon were going to come and play on one of our albums
Oh,
in
really?
Toronto. And unfortunately, John Lennon had left a message saying he couldn't make it, something had come
Oh,
up. But Elton had made it. Elton had turned up at the studio. So that was the first time meeting Elton, and he was brilliant.
were you
It was,
starstruck?
yeah, but it's Elton John. Who wouldn't have been? 1976, Elton John. It's like, bloody heck, that's Elton.
You see, again, this is where it's so interesting because your level of fame at that moment is through the roof. His level of fame is through the roof. And I remember meeting some of my heroes during what was our pomp as well. And I found that whole situation really weird that one minute you're getting idolized on stage by
Yeah,
100,000 screaming fans, and then the next, I'm literally standing in front of my heroes feeling like a fan myself. And I
I
found
know.
that whole
Oh,
transition quite odd, I got to be honest.
oh, the Carpenters, brilliant. I was a big, massive, still am. And we did a award show in Los Angeles, and all the kind of acts are sitting in the audience, and different people getting their awards and stuff. And I was sitting right next to Karen Carpenter, and you were having a wee chat. Richard sitting next to her, and it just all these sort of massive stars, and
Yeah.
there's us sort of five laddies from Edinburgh. Are you right, Hen? She probably didn't have a clue what we were talking about. I was still I would have been 18 at the time,
Yeah.
but still very Scottish. I
Yeah.
just remember her face going, yeah, and then, trying to understand what the hell I would have been saying.
See, I want to talk about the roller mania, which, if I'm correct in saying, is only the second time that I think it's only twice ever been used: Beatles mania and roller mania. Um, I'm wondering, did that enhance your reputation, or do you think because of the significance with the Beatles that it put a noose around your neck?
Oh, definitely. I mean, when we went to the States, we were sitting there at number one with a song called Saturday Night.
Yeah,
And the guy that was taking us over to the States for the first time is a guy called Sid Bernstein, who took the Beatles. He promoted the Beatles back in the day. So there was a big hype that kind of before we even got there, they had us as the next Beatles, the new Beatles. And I mean, for goodness sake, how to put a dampener on things. They should have just left it and let the band do its own thing, on the
yeah.
strength of this band have come out of the UK. But the media, you know what they're like. They just sort of jumped on that one, and the new Beatles, and it didn't do us any favours.
Did it put pressure on you to perform better than possibly what you may thought you were capable of doing?
I mean, to be honest, personally, that kind of thing doesn't affect me. I just do my best. I go up there, whether it's on stage or in the studio or any kind of performance, all you can do is your best. If you're trying to be like somebody else, then you might as well be like somebody else. But
Yeah.
just be yourself and trust your own kind of instincts and your own skills.
Did fame ever annoy you?
Um, Maybe from the fact we couldn't go out, so that would have been a bit annoying. You can have the fame and not the money. I'd rather not have the fame. I'd rather have the money. Who wants to be famous? It kind of stops you doing a lot of things. People pointing at you in the street or in the supermarket, or it can be a bit that way. It's like, oh, no, why do we wear hats and sunglasses and all that kind of thing to get away from that? So, the fame, it's not all it's kind of made out to be.
Woody, the perception is always, if you're a pop star, you are automatically a millionaire. And the amount of times that people would say to me, "Oh, you must be doing really well for yourself now. Must be great living in a big mansion, driving all these really nice cars and all that sort of stuff." It was nothing could be further from the truth. And I remember newspapers would say, Bad Boys Inc. are set to become millionaires and all this sort of stuff. And it used to really trouble me that because it's portraying an image which is absolutely false. And if ever I went home to Aberdeen, and particularly to the village where I grew up, people would say to me, "What's it like to be a millionaire?" And it was like, I'm nowhere near a millionaire. If you knew what I was earning a month, you'd be absolutely shocked. Did you ever have to sort of deal with the reality of that when it came to sort of your inner family and all that sort of stuff, and how people were dealing with you?
Yeah, you're so right with that. Because of being on the telly and you've sold a record, you're automatically classed as a millionaire. I mean, that first couple of singles we had, I mean, I don't think we were still getting £10 a week wages. Derek was still dishing out £10 a week, which was more that it was double what I was getting when I was an apprentice electrician. So I wasn't complaining. But yourself, royalties by the time it takes for them to come
Yeah,
through, and once
yeah.
everybody's got their cut and percentages, and that happens, and all your expenses, there's not that much left at the end of the day.
Hmm.
So
Did you ever feel the need to sort of get involved more in, say, the business side of the industry?
no, I mean, if I my being is all about its practical things. It's playing guitar, it's getting writing songs, it's being in the studio. You can't do both. I think you get, maybe you can, some people can.
Hmm.
I'm not that type. The business, that's why you have to have a manager or a good accountant, lawyers, all that kind of stuff. But then, who knows what kind of accountant and lawyer and managers so you're going to get. It takes a long time to find the
Hmm.
right sort of people. We've got our manager at the moment, the band's manager, John McLaughlin. We've known him for many years, and he's got a similar background. He's a musician, performer, songwriter. He understands the whole thing, which is
Hmm.
great. And it takes a long time to find people like that.
Yeah. I want to touch on a quote that came from yourself that I saw in a documentary when you said you got really irritated with a fellow band member who you felt was trying to hog the limelight. Do you feel
Right.
that there was becoming a popularity contest between each other, and was it unhealthy?
But yeah, I mean, there was an element of that because I think you find this is back to Tam
Yeah,
again, trying to get, he wanted to make the band five individuals rather than a band. So there was always that vying for the center. If you're getting a photograph taken, one of the guys would be trying to get in the middle. It was never Alan or Derek. It was Les, usually, Eric, myself. We'd be aware that let's try and get the best spot. It was
yeah,
just the way it was. It's a bit stupid when you think back.
yeah.
But that all stopped one day when a centre spread in a magazine and the person in the middle had staples right through their nose. So that was enough to cut that nonsense out.
But it's so common in bands, isn't it?
Yeah.
This
Oh God, yeah.
popularity contest, which unfortunately also happened with us, and it became irritating after a while, I got to be honest, because
I think it's a phase that bands go through, because obviously if it's about the music and about the band being a band, then everybody should be pushing each other, because the bigger the individuals are, the bigger the band's going to be, and one person's obviously going to be more important than the others, but that shouldn't matter.
Do you think it got in the way of the band's progression?
That's a funny one. Probably. I mean, there's certain decisions over the songs that we should have been doing or should have done, or choices that we made. We went to the States and did a TV series over there, the Sid and Marty Krofft Basic Roller Show. I can't remember the exact name, but in hindsight, maybe we shouldn't have done that. It was a bit too not us. It was all dancers, and we had to dance, and it was all glittery, and we should have kept more we did a series here, Shang-Lang. That was it was a bit more down to earth, a bit more gutsy, a bit kind of more what we were about, rather than trying to get turned into something we weren't. So, there's certain choices we made that probably we shouldn't have had.
Trying to turn you into the Monkees?
Possibly. It wasn't. It became not the band that started off. That band that I was roadieing for, that wasn't the band that we ended up. And saying that, we're kind of ending up in that now, because I feel that the band's got its direction back again.
Yeah. You see, that's interesting, because that leads me sort of to my next question. Do you think the Bay City Rollers, in what was its current form in the mid to late 70s, could work today in how popular music is today? And do you think they could be as popular?
I don't think it'll ever be a teeny bop band again. I think that's long gone.
Yeah.
Just the age alone. But in saying that, there's some great songs there. Shang-Lang is a great song. Saturday Night, the Give a Little Love. There's some great songs. I think songs will stand the test of time, and it's just up to the people, the actors, if you like, that are going to take that song and get it across there properly. The guys that are in the band right now, there's an attitude from them, and we're up on stage. That attitude, it's raunchy. It's kind of the songs are alive and well. So can it be popular again if we get the right follow-up album? New tracks. We think so. We definitely think so. I definitely think so.
How do you see your own level of fame? How has it changed in the past 50 years?
I mean, again, for me, staying focused on what's important, and that's looking for that hit song, working with the right people, being realistic about things. We're not, we don't have a number one right now, but it doesn't mean that we won't have one again.
Yeah.
So as far as the fame side, that doesn't interest me. I never really did. But it's about, let's get this happening. We were over in Denmark last week. We did a concert there, and it was brilliant. It sold out, all these people going nuts. As soon as they hear certain songs, certain parts of the songs, they're right up there. They're on their feet and they're getting into it. And you find that the fans that are coming along to those shows are sort of 50, 60-year-olds, but their daughters and sons that are in their 20s, 30s, they come along with a bit kind of, but after the second song, you see their kind of body language completely changes. By the end of the songs, they've kind of grabbed their mums or dads' tartan scarves and they're kind of giving it. It's brilliant. And that's it. That's what we're here to do. We're trying to keep this going.
See the terminology boy band. Do you think that came to be mainly thanks to the Bay City Rollers?
I think just in general, a lot of bands that had any kind of, you might as well say the Beatles were a boy band, and they're anything but. We were a band. We played guitars, drums. We were just a band. The Rolling Stones are a band. Seekers, but then as soon as they start to put the manufactured site together, they get 3 or 4 guys or 5 guys. There was no band. It was just, so they labelled that a boy band.
Yeah.
I mean, personally, it's not a term like I associate the Basic Rollers with. We weren't a boy band. The one of the guys was 23-year-old. He was a man, so it's a man band if anything. Teeny bit, it's just a term. it doesn't matter. It's not important. But boy bands were a kind of 80s thing, I think. We were a 70s band when bands were bands.
Woody, if you could have your time again and do anything differently, what would you like to do different?
Well, there's a few meals I'd like to eat over again. Let's see. Probably nothing, because I'm one of these types. I wouldn't be where I'm right at this point, but I'm kind of very happy with my life right now. And married. I've got Denise. I've got my wee dog Elvis, and where we're living is lovely, and just life is quite nice right now. And I think
why did you name your
if you
dog Elvis?
it's nothing to do with Elvis. I'm not even a big Elvis fan. Elvis is in the building.
Okay.
Brilliant.
If this is what I would really like to sort of get into your mind about, because of your what is a very unique experience. Do you think the Bay City Rollers should be used as an educational tool to warn wannabe musicians and pop stars about the trappings of the music industry?
I think that would be a great tool, especially colleges, schools even. Just think, we always got told that the bands in the 60s, well, even go before that, the decades before that, where musicians just didn't get paid, full stop. They got ripped off, and there was no protection societies, MCPS, PRS, all these that exist today. And throughout each decade, the guys in the 50s learned from the guys in the 40s and the 60s and 50s. I mean, when we were in the 70s, the stories we heard about the guys from the 60s, how they got ripped off. And, I'm thinking in my head, thank God we're not around in the 60s. We'd be getting ripped off. We didn't realise we were getting ripped off. And the guys in the 80s learned from us lot, and the guys in the 90s, and you guys would have learned from the decade before you. You would have had certain things in place that we didn't have. So yeah, I think there would be a nice educational tool there to take all that and put that into, summarize all that and just put that into a nice wee happy video. That could be very good.
When you guys sort of the original band split, what was 1978, I think I'm correct in saying, 78 or 79. Did anybody look after you, Woody? Did anybody sort of take a hold of you and say, right, this is what you're going to do next. This will be your path. And this is how you're going to get over the disappointment of what was the original band splitting up?
Well, it didn't actually split. What happened is 78, Les left,
Yeah.
and we got a new singer.
Yeah.
And the mistake we made, we changed the name of the band to the Rollers. We took away Bay City because we were trying to make the band just, this is a nice time to change. Musically, we'd all developed, we'd all grown up. Everybody could play everything, anything, writing stuff. Studios was second nature. So we thought this is a good time to change the name of the band a bit and try and get, lose the teeny bop side of things.
And so you were looking for a new identity?
Well, we'd already stopped wearing as much tartan. By 78, the band had already undergone not a transformation, but the band was growing up.
Yeah.
The trousers were getting longer, and the stripy socks were disappearing, and the tartan was becoming less, and we were becoming more that kind of 80s look because we were moving into the 80s. It was the end of the 70s. So we were developing continually, and we shouldn't have taken the Bay City away. It was still contractually, we were still Bay City Rollers. Our record deal was still kind of good. We were with Arista Records right up till 82 was our kind of last record with them. So it was still very much the Bay City Rollers. We just stopped having hits, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay. So how did you cope with not having as many hit records?
And that goes back to the love, the pure love. Why did I start this in the first place?
Yeah.
It was just to play music and to go out there, being in a different country every other week, or going to a new environment where it's another club or another hall. You're seeing new people. It's a new energy. It's not mundane. It never got boring. Even, there's some shows we played, the places was empty. We've had full places, empty places, rough places, pubs, sticky floors, big cruise ships. We've kind of played in most places, even the back of a lorry we played. So we've up in Copenhagen, up in Finland. I saw an old bit footage that we've got, and we're on the back of a lorry playing to a shopping car park. That was the gig, and it was great. So I just love the fact that you just don't know what's kind of round the corner, but we're still doing it.
I will never forget our first ever gig as Bad Boys Inc. We went to Bournemouth, if my memory serves me correct, to an under-18 nightclub. Right. And the guy said to us, right, you're going to be performing here. And I was like, where? And he said, in the middle of the dance floor. God. And I said, well, no one's going to be able to see us if we're in the middle of the dance floor. And he said, no, don't worry. He says, I'm going to build a stage for you. So he went away. He came back with 4 milk crates and put a piece of plywood across the 4 milk crates. And that was our stage, our first ever gig. The dance moves went right out the window.
Oh, no. Dearie me. I'd probably gaffer taped them together as well.
Oh, my God. See where you are now in your own head about your experiences, the amazing experience that you went through. Where are you now with it? Are you comfortable in your own skin about it all?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Put an old head on young shoulders, that would be pretty magical, but that's not going to happen. So I'm just trying to keep this going. It's great music. The guys that are in the band now, they're sort of mid-30s. So they've got bags of energy. They're loving the music. But it's important to get the right transition into new songs. We're not going to suddenly start playing all new songs. The old stuff always has to be there. That's the music that people want to hear. The Shang-a-Lang and all that, Bye Bye Baby and stuff. But the songs have to blend in with that, but also be current. So it's just it's a nice quest. It's a nice sort of challenge. And I do enjoy a bit of a challenge there.
You also lecture, right?
I used to. I just stopped that year before last. It wasn't quite the same. Since we had the lockdown, I was doing it all from home. It was on Teams, and not unlike what we're doing here. Yeah. So you're talking to students through a computer screen. It's not quite the same energy. And being in the studio, all the hands-on stuff wasn't happening. You couldn't, show how to mic up a kit properly. It was all the technical side that I was doing.
Yeah, so that was what you were actually lecturing, right?
Yeah, it was a sound production, but it was a day a week through in Glasgow at the Glasgow Kelvin College. Great college.
And I have to ask, did your students know who you are?
Not at first. Usually by the end of the course, some had found out. I mean, I was surprised because, they're sort of 18, 19, 20-year-olds, and to know the basic rollers was like, okay.
But how did they react when they found out that you were once a member of this hugely famous band?
A couple of them were quite impressed, but you know what students are like? They're all dead cool. Trying not to act impressed, like we're too cool for school, that kind of thing. But I mean, I wasn't there to impress anybody. I was just there to pass on kind of what I know. Yeah. And I enjoyed it. It was really good. I wouldn't have done that full time ever. But the one day a week, it was perfect. And the people you're working with, the staff, and it was nice to get away from my world and into that world. It just broke kind of life up nicely.
Yeah. But it's been absolutely fascinating. Thank you for coming on and telling me your story. And I wish you nothing but every success going forward with the band. And I know that you continue to gig all over the world. And I just hope you get as much enjoyment out of it now than what you did 50, 40, 30 years ago. So thank you for coming on. It's lovely to have you on, mate.
Thanks for having me, Ali. And
pleasure.
Good luck to you as well.
Thank you. Lovely to see you. Take care.
Cheers, Ali.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. My thanks to Woody from the Bay City Rollers. If you enjoyed today's watch, I would be extremely grateful if you would please consider subscribing to the Accidental Pop Star here on YouTube. It doesn't cost you anything. All you have to do is press that little subscribe button, and it just means you help me build the channel as we get deeper into 2023. That's it. We are all done for this episode of The Accidental Pop Star. I really hope you enjoyed today's watch with Woody, and I'll see you again very soon. Take care. Bye for now.